Evening all. Today's video is about taking 100% responsibility. 100% responsibility, no half measures. And what I mean when I talk about taking responsibility, I mean taking responsibility for our reaction to everything. We're falling into this trap of trying to control other people, try to control all the circumstances and events and whatever's going on in our lives, always needing to control it. And then if it's not within our control, we point the finger and we can start blaming other people. Now, as long as you're stuck in that situation of blaming other people, I know this sounds cliche, but as we go into it, you'll start to see how powerful this is. When you start to point the finger at other people, you're completely giving away all your power to live life on your own terms. Nobody is to blame, and I know this is a controversial thing, but nobody is to blame. Nobody is to blame for anything in your life. Even if somebody hurt you when you were a child and you were completely helpless, I know this is really controversial, and some of these videos are going to be, but I'm only sharing it to give everybody this opportunity to look at things a little bit differently in such a way that they can set themselves free. If somebody's hurt you and you were completely helpless in that, you were vulnerable, you were sick, you were young, you were whatever, you were tricked, you were manipulated or whatever. Okay, in that moment, you were helpless and you were a victim in that moment. Definitely, that goes without saying, right? You were a victim in that moment. But in this moment right now, you get to shift your energy around that person or that event or that circumstance that occurred at that point in your life that caused some sort of a trauma or some sort of a program will have installed a pattern in your life, and it will have been a result of a pattern normally as well that's already within your system. I say normally, often. So for example, if something happens when you're 2 years old, probably you don't have a pattern in already that's attracted something into your life. However, if you have this recurring pattern throughout your entire life, then there's something going on in you that's attracting that into you, that attracting this pattern in your life, whatever it is, whether it's been abused, taken advantage of, walked all over, whether it's been left out, whether it's been even been sick, chronically ill all the time, or having destructive relationships, working jobs you don't like, being disrespected, being held back, all this stuff. We want to take 100% responsibility. There is a pattern within us, or something within us, an energy that attracts things into our life. Now, if we start blaming the other thing, the circumstance or the person for anything that's gone on in our life, then what we're doing is we're effectively handing over all our power to make a change and be free and going, there you go, it's for you to deal with, I can't do anything about it. And then that pattern will remain with you for the rest of your life, and you'll be in a downward spiral. Downward. You're not going to stay the same. You're either going upwards or you're going downwards, or you might want to look at it as you're either going towards the left or towards the right. That's because the reason I say left and right is we don't want to say right and wrong, because all paths are valid. Whatever you're doing is valid, and that's something I'll cover later on in another video. Left or right, up or down, you're not staying where you are. So if you're suffering now, it's not going to alleviate. No one's going to come and rescue you. Things are not just going to magically shift for as long as you're not taking responsibility. Right, when you'd start, one of the most pivotal moments in my life was I was reading a book. For anyone who's into the whole success side of things, it was a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. There's some real gold in there, real good stuff actually. And it's called How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, if anyone wants to look it up. And there was one of the chapters near the beginning was 100% responsibility. And I remember it was a really short chapter, if I remember rightly. And as I read it, I remember reading it and being like, that's what's been missing. I've spent my whole life blaming society, blaming the government, blaming, the teachers at school, blaming my relationships, whatever, my peer group, whatever I could to not take responsibility. Now, when you take 100% responsibility, suddenly it's like, It's not a burden. It's liberating. So somebody hurts you. What that actually means is you're not saying you've done nothing wrong. You're not saying you can just do that to me whenever you want. What you're saying is it's my responsibility to decide what I do with that. Do I move away from that person completely and just never see them again? I'm going to use person as an example for this. Do I move away from them? Do I speak to them and open up and say this is not acceptable? Or do I allow that trigger? I'm going to go into triggers in another video. Do I allow that thing to hit and to hurt, and then and process that trigger until the processing of the trigger sets you free? This just depends on where you're at in your journey. There's different ways to deal with it, and whatever's right for you in the moment will be the avenue you take. And I'm going to discuss and talk about all these different avenues in this next month, making these videos. You've got to be 100% responsible if you want to be 100% free. Think about it. For as long as someone else is to blame, you are in a prison. As soon as you're responsible, then you're in control of you, and that's all that needs to happen. You to have a little bit of power over you. Now, that word power as well. I just want to clear up something there. That word power gets used negatively a lot as well, doesn't it? It gets used to mean, like people talk about the powers that be in the government and stuff like that. And I want to just reframe that for those of you that see it as a bad thing. When we talk about power, what I'm referring to when I say power is your ability to absorb anything life throws at you, to absorb it. And instead of using a shield like this to fight it off, that shield, again, I'll cover this later, that shield stops you being able to be free, stops you being able to move freely, just like a big suit of armor and a shield really would in real life. You're not going to be as free and able to live your life if you're constantly like carrying around this clunky, heavy metal suit of armor and carrying a shield and a weapon to defend yourself. This is what happens when we're living in fear. When you take 100% responsibility for that, what you can then do is in each situation, you can choose a new way. You can choose love instead of fear. You can choose, you are responsible for how you interpret what's coming at you. And I'm going to share with you some things now that taking responsibility can allow you to achieve in your life, or what it can allow in your life to change. So, for example, like I said, I've just said love and fear. This is a brilliant one. If you are stuck in fear, you're going to react from a place of fear, right? If you are acting from a place of fear all the time, what you're doing is you're holding that fear there, because all your life is built on the foundation and on the premise that there is something to be scared of. Okay, so for as long as you're holding on to that fear, everything you do is in reaction to it. Now, how can that fear ever leave when you're basing your entire life on it? You're reacting from it all the time, because then for you to let that go, your whole life comes tumbling down, and it makes life extremely difficult. So this gives you the opportunity to come from a place of love. When you take responsibility and you go, you hear that saying, what would love do? Some of you might have heard that. What would love do in this situation? I know some people say, what would Jesus do? But I know that's like, it alienates a lot of people, myself included, to be honest, in a lot of ways. But what would love do? So it's like, if somebody hurts you, you can go, that person's a bad person. I need to stay away from them. I need to warn people about that person. I need to slag that person off. I need to put something out on social media to hurt that person. I need to sit and resent that person and think about what I could have said. Or imagine how destructive is that energy of sitting in that kind of mire, that heavy, dark, dense energy of resistance of what this person has done or said, or how that person is, or how they're being. Or when actually, if you take responsibility for it, instead of blaming that person, you take responsibility. You go, okay, I get to decide. Do I want to do that, or do I go, okay, this is a human being who's had completely different upbringing to me. different parents, different peer group, different teachers, different society potentially, you know, different friend group and family, friends and stuff like that. Their whole life have been completely bombarded by completely different information to you. And as I've mentioned in the other video, the last video I did, the brain will always seek to prove itself right. So that person's then spent years and years and years having all them beliefs validated and confirmed over and over again until they believe them to be true. And a lot of these beliefs that this person's having, especially if they're acting out and hurting people, is coming from a place of pain and suffering because they don't know any better. They don't know any better. Now, there's a saying, I think it was a Bible saying or something about, like, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And what that means is, if you've been completely angelic your whole life, then maybe you get the ability or the opportunity to try to judge somebody else for their behavior, even though it's not helpful to you if you do, because you're just carrying around that heavy energy and you don't have to. If you have ever hurt anybody in your life and somebody's hurting you, you can understand that when you hurt that other person, there was reasons, there was something going on in you, your life circumstances, your programming, your patterning, your imprints, the way you were brought up, your morals, your knowledge, your experience, all came together in a big mixing pot and created a blend that gave you permission in that particular moment, under those conditions, in the presence or the environment that you was in the presence of the people you were in, gave you permission to do a certain thing that later on you might have realized was not, it was out of character for you, it hurt somebody, you might have regretted it. And when you realize this about yourself, you can see it in everybody else. If somebody's hurting you or hurting somebody else, maybe you can take that moment to go into it, and instead of reacting, to act how you've always acted before you took responsibility. It gives you the opportunity to respond, to act responsibly, to take that little sliver of time between what that person's done or said or whatever, or the circumstance or events, what's happened here, over here. It gives you the opportunity to take a second, take a breath, don't react, and realize that person, you have no idea what's going on in that person's mind. That can only happen when you take responsibility. Otherwise, you're just going to keep reacting and blaming the other person. That's just one example of what can happen when you take responsibility. Another thing, so what's going on at the moment with coronavirus and everybody being locked in, and you can see all this, people blaming the government and blaming, even if all that is true and all this conspiracy stuff or whatever, all this stuff that I'm seeing coming up in people, this fear-based programs being run out and patterns, and always pointing the finger, they've done it. Even if all that's true, is it serving you and your family and your friends and your loved ones, your pets, whatever, you and your environment? Is it serving for you to sit and blame everybody and get stuck in that resentment, that anger, that stressed state? Or would it serve you more to take responsibility, full 100% responsibility for how you react to that? Instead, you know what? No matter how this has come about, it has come about. Now what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? And I mean, for example, you could do what, say, myself and Emma have done, my partner, doing yoga, doing breath work, doing meditation, tantra, reading really good positive books. I mean, this is kind of our lifestyle a lot of the time, but we're really diving in deep with it. Drinking cacao and doing this, choosing to use this time to contribute and help other people in a way that I know that I can, and to spread good vibe, raise my vibration as high as I can all day, and then come tea time, boom, share that vibration with as many of you as I can. Now, what if every single one of us did this, right? sharing love and having this vibration is exactly the same as the virus. It does catch on. Like, look how quick this virus has just gone around the whole world. Love does the same. Gratitude does the same. Kindness does the same. Generosity does the same. Now, this is a perfect example given to us by nature, saying, look how life works. Look how reality works. Everything gets passed on. And this is a really perfect, beautiful metaphor. It's this is what we're doing, right? We're always affecting everything we touch. It's just that right now it happens to be a virus, but we're always doing it with everything that we are. Imagine that we are just emitting a vibration all the time. Our facial expressions, our body language, our voice, our posture, our words, our behavior and energy around other people, and the way that we interact with the world, the way we interact with people, the way we move, all of it is giving out information. It's giving out a lot of information that is being received by everybody that we come into contact with. It's just the same as this virus, it gets passed on. What if we just use this time to raise our vibration, raise vibration? I'm going to go a lot into vibration in another video. Raise our vibration, love, gratitude, peace, calm, affection, compassion, and like I said before, kindness, generosity, all those lovely words that even when you hear them, tranquility, peacefulness, relaxation, comfort, all these nice words, or even just hearing them, it gives you a feeling, like a sensation in your body. If you really just immerse yourself in that, all this beautiful energy, and then connect the way I am now, whether it's through a video, whether it's a video call, a phone call, or messaging, or whatever it is you've got, voice messaging, share that vibration and let's spread a new virus, right? A new virus. This only happens when we take responsibility and stop blaming. Because all we're going to share when we're blaming and not taking the responsibility for our own response, when we just blame, all we're sharing is that energy. So that's another virus. It's virus 2, right? What else? I mean, taking responsibility. Okay, another thing. For your life, like your environment where you live. Like if you were got to choose everything for the first time now, would you choose the job that you're in? Would you choose the home that you're in? Would you choose the location you live at? Would you choose the friends that you have? Would you choose your hobbies the same now if it's something you'd never ever done before? Like that's another way that taking responsibility can make a massive shift. You take responsibility instead of just getting caught up in habits and patterns and just continuing to perpetuate the same behaviours and the habits that you always have that might potentially not be serving you, especially if you're suffering with any sort of a mental health issues, anxieties, depression, feeling low. You don't have to be anxiety or depression. You can just feel crappy, right? You just feel like shit a lot of the time. It's only because you're running old patterns that don't serve you anymore. And we can use that discomfort, them feelings of stuckness, of sadness, of anger, of just fear. Use those and go, this is my body's GPS system, or my body's I say GPS, like a sat nav. It's like telling us which way is right for us, which way is in alignment with us for our well-being. If you don't feel great most of the time, or you don't feel happy or contented with your life most of the time, it's just because you're running old patterns that don't serve you anymore. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because you're getting a very, very definite signifier, a message that what you're doing is ready to change. So when we take responsibility, instead of just running on that old treadmill and just plodding through and not really being conscious about our choices and decisions and behaviours, taking 100% responsibility. You go, hang on a minute, come online, give yourself a shake your head, and then revisit your career, your hobbies, your habits, your diet, your I don't know, your practices in life, your relationships, the way you approach a relationship. Are you with somebody that you used to be massively in love with and so connected with, and now you're distant and you sit on different chairs in the house? Someone's on the sofa, someone's in the armchair. One of you sits reading a book while the other one watches TV, and you don't cuddle in bed anymore, and you go to bed at different times, and you're just not connected. You're not living the same life anymore. Maybe you just eat together and you don't talk much, and you're not open and honest and authentic with each other. Maybe communication's broken down. It's just all patterns. Taking responsibility, 100%. I can't stress that enough. 100%. 99% responsibility is not enough. It's not enough, because there's still always someone to blame, and all your anxieties and everything will just be projected into that 1% of responsibility you're not taking. And that might be a person, your manager at work, your mum. It might be a particular person in your life. It might be the government. That might be the 1% that you put all your discontent onto to validate it, instead of taking responsibility for it and doing something about it. It is in your power. We're all under very similar circumstances in one way or another. We're all humans. We all have the same kind of issues. The people watching this anyway, I know the world's a very different place, but for those of you that are watching this, you've likely got the internet. You probably live in a relatively westernized life, and yes, we have our traumas. We all have traumas. Some of mine include, really, from what I remember, near-death experiences as a kid from having really bad asthma attacks, and lots of that, and lots of self-punishment, self-hatred, or rejecting a lot of myself, sadness, feeling different, feeling like really alienated and isolated and different from everyone else. And this is a very common trauma. I think most people who are watching this probably relate to all this stuff. Feeling different, feeling isolated, feeling like you want to connect and you can't. The reason I'm making these videos, and this one is a huge factor in that, if you really want to connect with people, you can only connect with people when you let the barriers down. You can only let the barriers down when you stop mistrusting other people, and you can only stop mistrusting other people when you stop blaming them for things, and you can only stop blaming them for things when you take responsibility for the fact that they're in your life and behaving in a certain way, and that's the pattern that you're running. This does trigger people, this one, and I know it does, because I've put this out before, and I've had people come back and say, oh, so you're saying this was my fault and this was, and then they'll reel off a list of things throughout their whole life that all follow the same pattern and say, are you saying all that was my fault? Firstly, I'm going to say it's not a fault at all. There is no fault. Everything's just as it needs to be. So it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about dealing with whatever it is that's in you that is causing this pattern to keep emerging time and time again. Life is showing you something about yourself. I'm going to give you a little example. That buzzword narcissism that keeps flying around. I'm seeing it everywhere. Everybody's ex were a narcissist, and everybody's enemies are narcissists, and this thing's coming up so much. A narcissist is somebody that manipulates, or the manipulative. Now, manipulation can look like a lot of different things. And manipulation can be somebody who they call it gaslighting, I think. Someone who makes you feel like you're losing it, there's something wrong with you. And a lot of people will probably watch this and say, I'm gaslighting by saying it's your responsibility. You take responsibility for it. And a lot of people will probably say that, right? This is aversion. This is that whoever thinks that's you giving your power away. You take responsibility for the narcissists in your life. And what you're going to find, if you were very, very honest with yourself, and I know a lot of people aren't ready to hear this, if you were really honest with yourself, you'd realize that we're all playing some game of manipulation in a lot of ways. And the people who attract the narcissistic type or the manipulative types who want to bring them down to make themselves more powerful and have control also are playing a game of manipulation unconsciously, same as the other person is probably doing it unconsciously as well. And that unconscious behavior might be being a people pleaser, always being a people pleaser, always trying to keep everybody sweet. Now, the unwritten, it's in game in the pickup community, which is something that I used to follow. They call it the covert contract. The covert contract, like the nice guy who tries to get the girls by being really nice, buying them drinks, pretending to be the friend, and then at the same time, kind of speaking to the women, their friends, when another kind of a player kind of gets involved and they're making that girl laugh and they're like, oh, he's a dick, don't trust him, blah blah blah. He's trying to manipulate you, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that. It's that that behavior, they call it the covert contract. If you're a people pleaser, you're creating a covert contract, which is you're hoping to get back from that back from that person something, whether that's love or validation, or they need to be nice to you because they owe you that, because you are always nice to them. They owe it to you to be nice to you, and then you're making that person indebted. So even if you're the sweetest, loveliest person, and in your mind you are that sweet, lovely person, and I'm not doubting for a second you are, and I'll go into that further down the line, because the people pleasers generally are nice people, but then they have a layer of rejection of programs that are fear-based, and then over the top of that they're compensating for the fear and the mistrust by being nice, which is what they want to do anyway, but I'll cover that deeper in another video. From that place of people pleasing, we're creating that debt from the other person. We're indebting that person. That is manipulation, and it's these people pleasers, these nice people that get downtrodden by the narcissists. And as long as you're blaming that other person, that is going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to happen. When you get to the point where you've healed this thing within you, and you actually, when you're being nice, it's coming from a different place. That pattern's going to be gone. It won't be there anymore. That's a really positive aspect to taking 100% responsibility. I could go on. I think that might be enough for now. Like I said, I don't want to make these videos too long. We're approaching half an hour now, so I'm going to wrap it up there. And I know this will trigger a lot of people, but I'd love to hear anything you've got to say. Bang it in here and let's open up a discussion about it, and I can potentially make other videos in response to the comments that people are making and sharing, and maybe we can open a dialogue between a few people and open a discussion and help each other out and help each other to take that responsibility and to do what it takes, do the inner work and heal the wound that people keep putting the finger in, because when the wound's gone, there's nothing for people to stick the finger in, and that reality disappears. Those people disappear from your life. It just doesn't happen anymore. This is an experience I've had time and time again in my own life. It's been validated time and time again that when I heal something, the pattern that is related to that wound then disappears and my reality changes. And it's like people around you have a personality transplant, is what I always say. Other people seem to change, circumstances change, your environment automatically changes when you do that. So yeah, I'm going to leave that with you, and I'm looking forward to opening a discussion about it. So loads of love, much love. My next video will probably be about triggers, emotional triggers. So anyone who's feeling triggered now, watch out for the next video, and I will explain to you exactly what you can do with that to really help yourself out and dissolve those patterns that attract people, circumstances and events into your life that you no longer want in your life. All right, much love. Take care.